question why the chicken crossed the road, apart from trying to catch your attention with the title of it, I relate it to development education, because when we're looking at definitions of what development education and different people's understandings of what development education is, similarly to asking this question to everybody in this room, people will give you different answers, and some are funny and some aren't. Can I have the next slide, please? And who knew that even chickens thought about how the world should operate? I dream of a world where chickens can cross the road without having their motives questioned. And I think for me, doing the work that I do, it's important to, okay, this is a chicken, but to understand that everyone and everything has a way of seeing the world, a different perspective on situations and on life, and on the reality that we live in. And my next slide is an introduction to my world. And this is my baby daughter, Ruby May. She's almost 4 months old now. And this is one of the very first pictures taken of her in the hospital just before Christmas. And well, she looks a lot like how I feel a lot of the time. Beautiful. I often think of when I'm doing development education. I'm an adult educator and a youth worker. My background is working in youth centres, in a voluntary and a paid capacity. And when I'm trying to explain what development education is, in a local youth centre with young people who are experiencing social injustice in their own area where they live, it's very hard to get them to think about anything beyond their own boundaries. So let's start in their own boundaries. And one of the ways I try to explain to people what social justice is, maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but this is what I do. That's a sense of social justice. That's a sense of fairness. And I believe that it's an innate sense. It's inbuilt. I don't think it's something that children learn in a book. I don't think it's something that they learn in school. Somehow, it's an understanding of the world and the way things should be. The World Bank says that Ruby May will live to be about 80 years of age in Ireland. And well, we all know how wrong the banks get things occasionally. So let's err on the side of liberalism and say I think she's going to live to be over 100, and then we'll chalk that down to her dad's superior genetics. And now you can probably tell I didn't run this by my wife before I said I was going to do it. But why? Well, why is it that Ruby May will live to be older than so many other people simply because of where they were born in the world? Everybody is born somewhere, in some country, in some city, in some town, in some village, in some estate, on a street, in a house, to a family. Why should their life? Why should the life opportunities that they'll have extended to them, the different things that they can do and they can't do, be different just because of where they were born, which is something that they have no control over? They were simply born there. And I think about the connections that, when I'm trying to understand development education, the connections that exist in the world, people's lives and their livelihoods. We're more connected than at any other time in history. We're more interdependent than at any other time in history. And my role as a development educator, when I do it, is to explore those connections with people and to explore the impact of decisions that I make in my life with the lives of other people in my own area and outside of my own area, whether that's beyond in other towns and villages and cities in my own country and also in the global south. And Youth work is a vehicle for doing development education. Youth work is a way of tapping into that already existent innate sense of fair and unfair that young people have. And I feel that sometimes we rush young people into exploring the global dimensions of justice before they've had time to explore the local dimensions, because that's their reality. And yes, some groups are ready to explore the global straight away, for whatever reason that is. But I know many of the groups that I work with in Dublin City and surrounds aren't ready to dive straight into that. And so there's a lot of work to be done to explore the social justice issues. What is similar and different with their life and the lives of people from across the street in another neighbourhood, in their own city, in their own country, and then the connections that they have with people in other parts of the world. A little history about youth work. And maybe there are some people who are youth workers or studying youth work, and you might know even more about this than I do. Youth work, I suppose even the term adolescent didn't exist before the Industrial Revolution. And as people started to move from the countryside into the cities, there was little for them to do, and if they didn't find work, or if they did find work and they had money, and what did they do? And they were led into different activities that they may not necessarily have taken part in when they were living back with their families. And one of the oldest still existing youth organisations in the world is the YMCA, and the second ever YMCA was established in the city of Dublin in the mid 1800s. And youth work is that there's a number of different models and approaches to youth work, and three of those models are personal development, critical social education, and radical social change. Even hearing those words, personal development, critical social education, and radical social change, I can't see how you can't fit development education into that. They absolutely do. And I believe that development education addresses those different models by personal development, encouraging me to express my own views, to learn about myself, to learn about the things that I feel are right and wrong, fair and unfair, to be able to express my opinion. Critical social education, by looking at my own community around me and what do I like and what do I not like about it, what's fair and what's unfair about it, why are things the way they are in the place that I live. And in radical social change, if you're ever putting in a funding application for youth work activities, don't say that you're doing radical social change, because you probably won't get the money, because it's scary, because it is about doing exactly what it says on the tin, creating radical social change. That there are so many things messed up in the world, wrong, inherently unjust, but they still exist, and they're perpetuated by the actions of people every day all over the world, maybe consciously and maybe unconsciously. But development education encourages young people to examine their own lives and how they interact with their own communities, and then to do something about it, because without action, nothing changes. I thought it would be better to look for a definition of development education than the Irish Umbrella Organisation for NGDOs, and docus.ie has a couple of these, this definition, and I've highlighted just a few of the words in it. Development education, increasing awareness, understanding of global issues, interdependence. It's education, reflection, analysis, and action at a local and global level. I believe that youth work already does this at a local level. The challenge for youth workers now is to bring that to the global dimension, and to bring that global dimension into the reality of lives for young people. If we were to put definitions of youth work up here, I think that we would be able to overlay them and they would fit in there very nicely. One of the big differences there, I think, is simply the word global. But I think that that's a mind shift that we need in the way we practice our youth work here in Ireland, which is to understand that because young people's lives are so interconnected, with others all over the world. We can no longer just explore the local justice issues. That my actions they impact on somebody else's lives. Imagine the world as a spider's web, and you pick one tiny piece of the web. What happens? The whole web shakes. And that's how we need to start understanding when we do our youth work, and when we make conscious decisions about the activities we're going to do and the direction that we're going to take our youth work, that it has an impact on the rest of the world, on our society, on locally, and then on the rest of our society. Barnardo's, the children's charity here in Ireland, they have a program called the Roots of Empathy. And the idea of that program is to teach young children the skills of empathy. And I kind of wonder, I go into a little bit of despair, and I wonder, why do we actually need to teach people this? Why aren't... I didn't go through a course that taught me how to have empathy, but what is it about the world that we live in now where some people don't experience that in their own lives, in their own personal lives? What is the role of youth work in promoting empathy? And what is the role of development education in promoting empathy? I think that done well, development education, it does that. It taps into people's innate sense. I believe that most of us, we are, is the word empathetic or empathic for the rest of the world. Yeah, I think we are, but maybe we need to build the platforms so that what we're doing is seen more clearly and understood more loudly. Development education isn't a luxury. Youth work isn't a luxury. The National Youth Council of Ireland, in a study last year, they did an economic assessment of youth work. I think it's unfortunate, first of all, that you have to do an economic assessment to justify what you're doing, which is creating social change. Why do you have to justify it in terms of money? Well, that's because the people who write the checks, they're the ones, that's the language that they understand. I think it's unfortunate, but what they did find was that in Ireland, for every €1 that government spends on youth work, it saves €1.22 in the long run. Why are we cutting youth work budgets if that's the reality? Similarly with development education, if it promotes a critical reflection of how we interact with the world around us and encourages us to take actions which promote positive change in the world, why are we cutting the budgets that fund that work and make it possible? It doesn't make sense. The next slide. To finish off, development education without action, it's just words. Youth work without action, it's just words. It's just a room full of people playing games. In the Tibetan Shambhala tradition, there's a story about the Shambhala warriors. And that one day when the world is ruled by barbarians, the gates of Shambhala will open and the warriors will ride forth to fight the powers that be. These warriors wear no uniforms, no medals, no insignia. You won't recognise them when they pass you, but when two warriors meet, they will recognise each other. We are those warriors, people who practice youth work and development education. We are those warriors, and the Hopi elders from a North American tribe, in a statement that they released a number of years ago about world events, what they said was, gather yourselves. We are the ones we've been waiting for. The time of the lone wolf is over. And so the next time that somebody asks you, why did the chicken cross the road, I dare you not to think about taking action for social justice. Thank you.